There I was in my big gay brunch featuring my beloveds Aramis, Besitos, aka David, and Ateo. All three were Dominican, and I insisted they call themselves the Three Dominicanos. Get it, Dominicanal? Okay. Yeah, that idea was shut down. I was starting to reveal my daddy issues to my friends, which apparently it had always been apparent, but at the time I was wondering about daddy recovery. It had been an idea floating in my mind, and I was testing my friends to see what they would think. You should do an episode about how your dad was gay, Ateo blurted. What? He was gay, he said, chewing on his omelet, as if he hadn't rocked my world. My father was not gay. Stop. I can't handle it. He hated women. He loved your mom, especially because she's mean. And he had a real penchant for promiscuity when he was high. What makes you think it was only the front door that was open? Shut the F up. Seriously, I said, nervous laughing. Because it was a thought I had had, but immediately dismissed, thinking that it was cruel or sinful of me. But even that is problematic. Sexuality is sexuality, but in a homophobic world, thinking your dad might have just been closeted makes you come off disrespectful and embittered, especially because he abused you. I could already hear my familial press line judging me, saying things like, No puedo creer que dijiste eso de tu padre. Or, I know he was not a good father, Deandra, but he was not gay. Moreover, I could picture my mother taking it as an insult to her intelligence that her gaydar did not go off. Yet nobody loved my mother more than gay men, especially because her entire day was spent teasing and commenting on others as if she was born in RuPaul's workroom. How is a hatred for women and blatant misogyny a sign you are gay? Asked Aramis as his face transitioned from actual questioning to actual answering, because the answer was in the question. DL's beards, that's not a disrespect to women. Using their heart for our cover. How about the fucking prejudice our community has against those of us that are femme or trans? How are you going to struggle to like or accept a portion of our community and then claim to love the source, womanhood? Please. Ateo had gotten so instantly heated, his crop top shrunk. In that moment, the brunch went from is my dad gay to is the LGBTQ plus community prejudice? And I was left to ponder while they pounced. My father hated women. He hated his mom, claiming she was a mean whore. He hated his sisters, claiming each of them were stupid and whiny, which really bothered his higher intelligence. He hated my sister because, as he would say, she was as beastly in behavior as a mother, and he hated her mother, claiming she was the ugly woman that ruined his life by getting pregnant and separating him twice from women he preferred to be with. Yet when it came to my brothers or his grandsons, his reviews were rather swimming, except when one of them was left by his wife. When Joel's wife left him supposedly for another woman, my father was livid. He could not believe that a postpartum slut had walked away from such a good man, ready and willing to take on the humiliation of becoming a mailman just to support his family. He went off on how Joel was stupid and weak, which hurt me. I only met my siblings a few times, and I liked them. My sister felt strong and adventurous. My brother Joel felt really sweet and funny, and my other brother just felt quiet and observant. I like these traits in people, but I especially love sweetness. My father blamed my brother's intelligence for why his wife left, as if his very mistake was loving her. But as my father's victim, I oddly understood my brother. Sometimes we want to be loved so badly we do not realize a person has left us until they are actually gone. Moreover, according to my dad, she had had severe postpartum. And as someone that has suffered depression, it does make you want to exit all that you know. Ultimately, what I really had to start assessing was whether or not knowing my father more deeply was going to actually make me know myself more. My worst fear in life was that I would be as evil as my dad. Cold and calculating, but so good at making some people like me that they would forever deny all the things I did to make others hate themselves. Frankly, it worked. My sister and her mom justified how my father would put his sisters and mother through the floor with his verbal assaults, and had no problem with the fact that he never paid child support or took me anywhere beyond the mall to watch him shop for himself and them. They did not care about my psyche. But the question remained, was my father gay? All right, let's dissect that. So yeah, I kind of love what Ateo said. Um, and he went off and he said a lot more, but I have to make these things concise. People don't read. Um, but basically, what he was talking about is there this kind of he feels that the LGBTQ plus community denies just how prejudiced it is against femme, being femme and being trans women, and kind of uses um, these two portions of the community because they're trending to act like they've grown more accepting. But the truth is, that's not the truth. And I and he brought up like bearding and DLs, and I really what I found so interesting about his perspective, and I do share, was this idea, and it's something that has bothered me because I had a friend that was bearded, and he was like, how, you know, just because you can't own your authenticity doesn't mean you have the right to make a genuinely fake life with someone else and make them believe that everything is real, even though you're not. You know, it's kind of like you are pushing someone to question their entire life just because you can't own your answer. And that's unfair. And it's not by chance that it's one oppressed community doing that to another oppressed community because it's approved. Because in his mentality, I liked what he said about like the kind of, I'm trying to make it perfect to what he said because I thought that was really impactful. Like, just you don't have the right to make somebody question their entire life because you can't own your answer. When he said that, I was like floored. And you don't have the right to make your fakeness feel genuine just because you can't own your authenticity. He said that. I was like, because it is true. You are using people's hearts and their lives and their capacity to dream. A woman's life, a woman's capacity to dream, a woman's heart to cover how you don't really understand your, or you fear your sexuality, you fear your relationship with masculinity because it's not normalized. And often we do have this like compassionate view for DLs and bearding, kind of, you know, the things you do out of fear, but you know, people kill out of fear too. And in some ways it is a form of killing. And I say that because I did not like how people treated Kris Jenner in the whole Caitlyn Jenner debacle. I thought people were so cold to her because she was grieving Bruce. And I remember there was this scene of the Kardashians where she was putting his stuff away and crying over it. And I knew what she was grieving, and it was a dream. When you get married with someone, you dream with them. And 20 years in the marriage means there's still some solid dreaming. And you could judge her for not seeing or not thinking or noticing, but you're judging her because she's a her and you're not in her position. And I thought that, you know, now we all know that Caitlyn Jenner is just absolutely detestable as a human being. Like, she is just, ugh, ugh. But at the time, everybody, she's so brave, she's so fearless. Like, they were just hoisting her up like she was the greatest human being that ever lived. But she really did like murder in some ways her entire past and her her family's entire concept of what had been, I think, how long were they married? Like nearly 30 years. And we judged them for being shocked or grieving or confused as if she was being nice about it. I thought she had no care or tenderness or kindness for Kris. And we kind of sided with Caitlyn. I didn't, because I could tell a biatch a mile away. Anyway, we sided with Caitlyn because we thought the ordeal was hard enough, right? Like, there's just, it's so brave of you to kind of torpedo the life you knew to finally own the life you want. But the key word in that is torpedo. And I don't know if there's a proper exit, but I know that wasn't it. I don't think you have to trash everybody that knew you for how you presented yourself just to own how you always wanted to present yourself. And that, oh my God, everything launched. Everything launched when we were talking about that. But I got kind of quiet because it's a thought that I've always had with my father. My father was very promiscuous, he had a sexual addiction as much as an alcohol and drug one. And it, he hated women so much, and he excused how he abused me and my mother with how his mother was abusive. Like, for him, that was a valid reason, even though it just was like an excuse. And from that was one of the most annoying aspects of our relationship. Like, my father did everything to put me and my mother in debt, but he would cry how he was poor. And in his head, nobody knew abuse or poverty more than he did. So there was no way he could be as abusive or as impoverishing. And I think it is a struggle amongst oppressed communities, like BIPOC communities, LGBTQ plus communities, even the poor. I think it's a struggle to say that we are as prejudiced as our oppressors, or could be as prejudiced as our oppressors, because we don't feel we are materially benefiting from this moral deficiency. It's kind of like, it's hard for Black people to say they're racist, Asian people to say they're racist, Latinos to say they're racist. You'll even hear members of all those communities say, I'm not racist. I'm not powerful enough to be racist. I'm not the power to be in that is to be racist, the systemic main power. But you could be powerful running your Walmart, right? You could be Asian and running your own local Walmart, and by chance you just never hire Latinos. Huh? You just don't like them. And you were the system in power there. And I'm just using it as an example, but I think what Ateo was getting to at the time was this kind of idea, and it's something that is true in terms of historic prejudice. Historic prejudice runs on a few main ideas. Number one is you make somebody so emotionally and morally savage that they can no longer, you claim they can no longer physically handle or elevate their material resources and status. It's kind of like basically the original cancellation. If I say you are so crazy and you are so horrible and you are so bad, you will lose your job. And I will make sure you are never hired. And I will take your house. And I will take your land. And I will take your gold. It's that mentality. It has happened to Puerto Ricans. It has happened to natives. It has happened to Black people. It has happened to every oppressed community, the LGBTQ plus, women, the poor. I mean, that whole concept of poverty is that for some reason, so many more people just can't handle money. 99% of the global population cannot handle money. That's why only 1% can have it. And you see it all the time. There are like people making money off of telling you how to make money or how to save money. Meanwhile, there's an entire political governmental system that is consistently pushing out policies that put you in debt. Those people are useless. You know what I mean? Like, don't tell me how to survive a system that is constantly one upping its versions of death for me. Ooh, girl, I went off. But it is the truth. And it's hard to acknowledge that you may have flaws because of this next part, which is prejudice, the oppressor also runs on a concept that you would have done the same had you had the chance, had you had the resources, the gusto, the strategy, the opportunity. You would have been the colonizer too. And it's not necessarily an off idea. It's actually one of the more difficult ideas to combat, because it's kind of like, the idea the tribes did sell out other tribes. Aztecs, Mayans did have caste systems, did have human sacrificing. Um, Even, the Holocaust that happened. uh, right now, Israel versus Palestine. It's like people do turn on other people, even though they have a history of being turned against. Communities do turn on each other, even, or turn within themselves, rather. And one thing that my father did a lot was, he kind of he just had this concept that he could never be the pain that he met. He could never be the pain he defined himself as. Like, he defined himself according to his what he claimed was abusive to him. What were his losses. And yet he had absolutely no awareness or no apologies for how he was painful to others, for how he made sure I lost and other people lost. And it's what happened in Liberia, it's what's happening with Israel right now. There is this concept that I could never be the evil I faced. But you can, you're just being it to another person. And my father really, like, I can't say he destroyed men. He really did destroy women. And he loved he only bashed the women in his life, like my sister, her mom, but he had gloating reviews for my brothers, for his grandsons, and the only time he ever turned on my brother and the sons that he had, um, with his other wife, was when she left. And he just thought that my brother was stupid. And now he's working as a mailman, which, by the way, my father was very classist. Oh my God, I can't believe he's doing that. He's too good for that. She's such a dumb bitch. I hope our my granddaughters don't become like her. Like, all this stuff. And he my brother was very sweet, very funny, just warmth. And my father really liked that. And he just turned so cold and disgusted with him because she left. And he had no compassion for her. And I don't, at the same time, wow, ouch. But apparently, I did remember he said that she was suffering from severe postpartum. And if somebody suffers from depression, you just want to exit, baby. It becomes so insufferable, your life, that you forget your moral compass. You don't just exit like that. But it's like your whole body is on fire because your spirit is turning to ash. And you do some really ridiculous things. My father should know, he was an addict. And I think ultimately my assessment was, I don't want to, I got to make questioning my father useful in terms of how I answer to myself and how I answer about me. And sometimes I get too inquisitive and too analytical with him without a point. Like, if he's gay and he was horrible to women, and he was horrible to women because he was closeted, still doesn't take away that he was horrible to women. Still doesn't take away that he was moved by cowardice, right? Cowards are horrible people. And my father was very cowardly. He loved to destroy, but he couldn't confront the destruction. He would run, like most scam artists do, right? And I think that's the crossroads I often find myself at when it comes to my father and daddy recovery, and kind of reconciling with my mom and her role and my role, and is this kind of like, okay, yeah, hated women, closeted, still doesn't justify what he did. So how are we moving on from this? There comes a point where it's like you I don't it's like when the murderer, if you're a fan of true crime, like says why he did it, and you're like, "Oh, well that's stupid. You ended your wife because you were in love with her sister, who by the way was married? Like, where were you going? Where were you going?" Like, you can only dissect the motivations for your destruction so much until you have to face why you're destroying yourself, why you're destroying others. Like it eventually, yes, it's the roots, but it can't always be the excuse. It's always good to know the origins of things, but it has to be with the purpose of healing yourself. And my father never healed himself. He just avoided and acted and lied and betrayed. But I do want to heal myself, in part because I'm a woman. Like, I can't, and I'm a good human being. Like, I I'm not good at being evil. And I'm telling my truth because I don't want to be. And I think when you hide from the truth, whether you like it or not, you do become bad. I think if you self sabotage yourself and you hurt yourself in honor, name, or like your abusers did, you're not that really good of a person. And that's what was starting to bother me and why I did Daddy Recovery. There came a point where I'm like, I don't think I'm that good of a person if I'm not good with me, you know? So check out daddyrecovery.com to read my stories. Follow me on all social platforms. Follow me as Deandra on all music platforms. Let's unpack. Love ya.